deep pain just to start with and ask those three lovely ladies over there if they can sort of move in here so we're more of a collection.
Did anybody want paper and pen?
No, you just sit there, anywhere you like, mix.
Want paper and pen, anybody? No, I'll go over here.
No worries, no worries.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. There is a reason for this, which I will explain in a minute. Right. Okay. It's fine. The background noise is fine because I am told by most people, mostly my kids, my parents, and anybody else who knows me, I'm far too loud. So, and that comes from an acting background where we were taught to be loud, so I can overcome the coffee. The reason I wanted us all to be here in a bunch is because when we think about storytelling, we live our own stories, hour by hour, day by day, week by week, on and on. And today in itself is part of your story. But each one of you has a different story in your head about today. So let me just give you a little bit of a background about me. Suffice to say, I don't actually like doing this. As a storyteller, I encourage everybody else to tell their story, but when I have to tell mine, I go, but I'm going to do it today. I'm going to show a bit of a vulnerable side to me that very few people see. So please, you're all very lucky. Can I see lucky faces go, woohoo, lucky? That might change. Okay, so for many, many years, as a child, I've got an older sister and a younger sister. They were dancers. I wasn't. My mother was a dance teacher because she was a Tiller girl.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Very wow. I hated dancing, so I didn't care. Until I realised that I was the one at home getting tea ready while everybody else was out doing their bit. So for a long time I convinced myself I had middle child syndrome. And this was a very real thing. And as I went through life, I used that as an excuse that I was the middle child. It was nothing, it was everybody else's fault but mine. So one day I decided the only way to compete with two sisters and a mother who were brilliant dancers was to become an actress. That I could do. So off I went to London, Mount View, 3 years, running around, playing acting, doing daft things, going to concerts. I was a punk for a little while, I was a new romantic for a little while. I used to just, I thought nothing of walking home from the West End to North London in the middle of the night. Never occurred to me that would be a problem. And actually one day, when I was in my flat and we had a bit of a, somebody knocked at the door, and I opened the door, and there was Rod Stewart. And I'm like, wow. And I'm just looking at him, and because he came to pick up a flatmate, he wasn't there for me, trust me. Not there for me, he was there for my flatmate. But of course he was more casual. Well, I'm looking at him thinking, God, he looks like Rod Stewart. I actually said to him, who are you? Not a fine moment. Anyway, on I go with life. I did do some acting, mostly pantomime stuff, can you tell? It's very good at pantomime. Did some pantomime.
Oh no, you weren't, sorry.
She's behind me. And I carried on, but I never really became a great actress. I met my first husband. Yeah, we're going to start counting husbands in a minute. Met my first husband and decided that was lovely. I'm going to have a baby. Just spur of the moment. I'd been with him a week when I told him I wanted a baby. And it took me actually another 5 years to conceive a baby. That's another story. Moving fast forward, my life's going on. I'm still sort of caught up with stuff. Caught up with, I'm going to be famous one day. Caught up with, if only everybody could see me and hear me. Not this, the inside bit. This was just the persona. Left first hubby, baby under one arm, carry bag under the other, went back to Bournemouth. to my parents. Met a lovely man and fell in love. I do that a lot. Really got to stop doing that. But I fell deeply in love. And we moved in with his mother. Do you know the ending? You've got the ending, yes. So, now, abuse is a funny thing in life, isn't it? When we think of abuse, and we think of abused women, we think of men, mostly, abusing women. Let me tell you that little old ladies who look like they bake cookies and do go to church every week can be just as bad. Anybody can do that. So I spent 20 years being told I was rubbish, I was no good, I should leave her son. Social services, she phoned them at one point because I'd left a baby crying. This went on 20 years until one day, and this is the point of stories. I believed for a long time that somebody else was writing that story. That was my story. And it came to a point when I took an overdose. I didn't want to die, I wanted to just get off the world for a little while. And I don't remember much of that weekend when it was happening, except I sort of woke up on a Monday morning on the floor in our lounge, huddled up, with husband number 2, who I adored, standing over me going, "Oh, you're awake, I'm off to work." That's a pivotal moment in life. We all have pivotal moments. And at that moment, I had to make a choice. Did I live the life I thought everybody had written for me and probably die? Or do I start to write my own story and live? Sounds dramatic, but in that moment, that's exactly how I felt. So I made that choice to live. Obviously, here I am, to live. And I looked at my life like a fairy story. I love books that have witches and vampires and spell making because it felt like there was a real solution. They always had a solution. You could wave a wand or chuck some sort of potion. You could kill the dragon. There was always a solution. So I started thinking of my life as a fairy story. And I was the damsel in distress. I'm always the main person in my stories. You have to put yourself as the main character. So moving on, I looked at one, no, this damsel in distress is not going to be in distress. Just because I love someone deeply, I have to love myself even deeper. And that, I think, was the moment when I realised that those stories that I got lost in, I could use in my life. And I moved on, and I moved out. Funny enough, it was a New Year's Eve, and we'd gone out for dinner, and we had nothing to say to each other. Another pivotal moment in my life when I went, I'm not going home. I've had enough of this. And I booked into a holiday camp and sort of took life from there. And I started my own business, and I worked for charities, worked in the voluntary sector, helping very, very dysfunctional communities make different choices, and here I am. Because storytelling is so important. And what I'm going to do today with you all, we're going to create a story. And I'm going to try to keep up with the story as the narrator. But you are going to create this story. Now, I'm going to put a little warning out there because when I do this sometimes, it can get a bit dark and deep, so if it's going to trigger something, honestly, please just nod or something and go and sit in the garden, I'm not sure, but it can do, sometimes it doesn't, so I'm just going to put that out there, okay? Stories within stories within stories within stories, and every story has a solution. Within those stories you have chapters, and different parts of our lives are different chapters. And as those chapters build, you can't do much about the chapters that have already been written and read, but what you can do as an author of your own life is decide where those characters are going in the next chapter. And the thing about storytelling is, when I read, I'm the person that goes to the back page after the first chapter just to make sure everybody's okay. In life you can't do that. I suppose some people, yeah, but that's not how it works. You have to work towards an ending of your story that is in your head. That ending you want. That legacy you want to leave. And that's what you're aiming for. So when we tell this story and I ask you to build the story with me, I want you to think about facts rather than feelings at this moment in time. Because in life, when we think about ourselves as a book, it's just words. The emotions and things swirl about. But when you read a book, it's the words that create the emotions. And words can be very powerful. Very powerful. And it's the words that affect how you react. So, let's have our main character is going to be, obviously, an international woman. From anywhere in the world. So, I don't know any of your names, so I'm going to point and be rude. So, okay. So, our wonderful woman is the main character at the moment of our story. So, how old is our woman?
72.
We have a 72-year-old woman, the main character of our story. Where does she live? She lives with you?
No, sorry, I was going to clarify Manchester.
So our 72-year-old woman lives in Manchester, okay? So we're building this character. And as you think about it, just picture in your head, okay, this 72-year-old woman. Tell me a little bit about this 72-year-old woman. Does she have a family?
Yeah.
She has a family. What sort of family does she have?
Busy family.
She has a busy family. So our 72-year-old woman who lives in Manchester is a lady with a very busy family. Very busy. How does it make her feel?
Bored.
Bored. So we have a very bored 72-year-old woman living in Manchester with this really busy family. Okay. So let's imagine she's woken up this morning, this bored 72-year-old woman in Manchester. What's the first thing she's going to do? So the 72-year-old woman living in Manchester, who's bored, has woken up, thought about her busy family, and pulled the cover up over her head. Now, in a story, she can't stay like that. That's a very short story. So, now, she has to do something today. What is it she has to do?
She has a list of chores and people to look after.
So our bored 72-year-old woman in Manchester who pulled the covers over her head because she has loads of chores, people to look after. Is she still bored?
No, I think she's stressed with that, but I was going to say, I think, yeah.
Stressed.
Yeah.
She's stressed and bored. Think about those two statements. She's bored and stressed. What is she bored with?
The cycle of the stress that just go on and on.
That's it. So our 72-year-old woman now, who lives in Manchester with this big family, very busy family, has all these chores to do, all these people to look after, and she is bored with this cycle that goes round and round and round. Can I just ask someone to give me a 10-minute warning towards the end?
Towards the end.
You know, my time session.
You've got a good. You've got loads.
Oh, okay, good. So, back to our 72-year-old woman. So, she's got up, and she's looked at her list, feeling really stressed and bored with everything that's going on. And she decides today she's going to do something different. she's decided today to start a revolution. What does she do first, lovely lady with the bluey, purpley?
She makes a list.
So this bored woman whose cycle goes round, who's got this list of stuff she's got to do, decides to create a revolution and make a list. How many of us do that? How many of us go, I'll change everything, I'll make another list. And now you've got 2 lists. So what's on her list? And I'm going to go around and ask every one of you to put one thing on her list. What's on her list?
I think the first thing is change.
Change is on her list. Okay. What's on her list?
To get help.
Change, get help. On her list.
Set fire to the list.
She's going to set fire to the list. Okay, I like that one. On her list.
Put herself first.
Put herself first.
She's got to find someone who's going to be the person who's going to bring her joy and help her actually move forward.
Good. So, just going to read because otherwise I'll forget. So she's got her second list, and on her list is change. It's around being happy, setting fire to. Is it just the one list she's going to set fire to?
All
To begin with, yeah.
Right, so she's going to set fire to this list. She's decided she needs to find somebody who will give her joy and happiness. What else is on her list?
To close the door and never go back, I think. She's got that kind of.
So she's closing her door on her list.
Front door.
Her front door.
Yeah.
She's closed the front door. I think this is before she set fire to the list.
Yeah.
Otherwise the list is, but you know what we're like with lists. What else is on her list?
On her list,
Yeah.
I thought what she was going to do was actually run away, drive to the seaside and avoid it.
Close the door.
Okay, so let's just, at the moment, well, she is our 72-year-old lady in Manchester who's bored with making loads of lists, looking for somebody, locked her front door, but is going to run away to the seaside or wherever. When you think about all that on her list, how is she really feeling?
Very low, frustrated, and before she goes, she needs to do a makeover, a pluck and prune, and do her hair.
Pluck and prune!
Yes,
Which would help her find this ideal person to give her joy in life while she's running away to the seaside.
You've got to go out with style. It's winter. Going to do it. Do your hair.
Do it with style. So I'm assuming then our 72-year-old lady in Manchester didn't have a lot of style to start with. She's obviously a bit downtrodden and feeling a bit wool and all the rest of it. So there she is. She picked up her list, having written all these things down, and decided to do all these things. I'm not going to call it a bucket list, because I hate that term, but she's got a list. So she sets fire to her list. Does she lock the front door before she goes out after? You've got to get your story in order.
She goes out, she locks the front door with the intention of never going back through it again.
Right, so she locks her front door, she goes out, gets in a car, because I'm assuming, and she drives off into the sunset to find this new life, after having puffed and pruned and whatever else needs to go on to make her this beautiful person. So, we move to chapter 2, right? She's in a car, puffed up and pruned, heading towards the seaside. What's really going through her head? What's really going through her head?
New life, I guess.
Imagine you were her, with all this inspiration going on because she's done her list and burnt her list and pruned. What does she really feel?
There's my penny coming from.
Where's her next penny coming from?
Yeah, it's temporary.
Fear.
Yeah. Because in a story, you had to have an up and a down, an up and a down. You know, nothing ever goes along on one plane or we'd never read the books.
Yeah.
So we have to accept you know, that sometimes, and it's like films, you know, when you have the trilogies, the middle one is absolutely rubbish, it always is. It fills in the backstory and it's really boring until we get to a bit of action at the end. So she's in her car having done all this and then wondering where's her next penny coming from.
She runs out of petrol.
She runs out of petrol. Let me go back a bit, right. 72-year-old woman living in Manchester who is bored and stressed because of her busy family, and she decides she's had enough, so she takes her original list and makes another list with all these wonderful things she wants to do, with the things that how she wants to live. But she burns that list. I want you to think about that in terms of a story. She burnt the list. But that didn't stop her tarting herself up, going out the front door, locking it, swearing never to come back again, never to walk through that door again. Gets in her car, drives off, runs out of petrol, and sits there wondering, where's my next penny coming from? I feel sorry for her already. So, there are always back characters in a story. It's never always about that main person. You think in the world today, there's this huge story going on that we can touch upon, but we're really bit players in a lot of those stories. But her family are part of that story. So when she disappears and she's sat in a lonely lane with no petrol, this side of the room are going to be her family. This side of the room are going to be, we haven't given her a name. This poor woman has no name. She has no identity at the moment. So, someone give her a name.
Charlotte.
Charlotte.
That's the name I was going to say.
There you go. Charlotte. She now has a name. So, family, are you going to visit Charlotte today?
We're going to try, but she's not there. So we're going to phone her.
How do you know she's not there?
Well, we've tried phoning home. There's no answer.
Right. So the family phone her, obviously to see if she's done all the chores and looked after everybody. I mean, that's what families do. No answer. What is the feeling you get then when you get no answer from Charlotte?
Try the mobile.
Okay.
Keep trying.
What's happening in your heads?
She normally answers the phone and she's not answering.
She's collapsed.
So, yeah, worried.
So you're beginning to get worried.
Angry. She's normally there to do everything. Where is she?
Oh, so we've got some of the family, this busy family, going, oh, poor mum, where is she? Charlotte, where's she gone? And then you get other members of the family going, well, why isn't she there? I've got things she needs to do. Who can relate to that? Most of us can relate to that. Okay, so, do you all turn up at the house?
We ring each other.
You ring each other.
Yeah.
So you're a close-knit family.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're busy, but we argue.
Typical family. Typical family.
Normal family.
Normal family. Right, okay, so we've got the family over here, normal family. Charlotte's now sat in her car in a lonely lane going, where's my next penny coming from? What does she do now? What do you do now, Charlotte?
She calls them girlfriends.
She rings her, oh, we've not met the girlfriends. So Charlotte actually has girlfriends. People to talk to. And she rings them. Okay, this table are now the friends. You're all Charlotte's. Why don't the friends know what Charlotte's going through?
Perhaps they do.
They do know.
Oh,
Sorry.
they do know. See? I think that's the sound of her house going up in flames when she burnt the list and didn't actually put it in a safe So the friends do know. Charlotte, have you told the friends everything?
No.
No. Have you told your family how you feel? No.
No, definitely not.
What has stopped you three Charlottes talking to your girlfriends and your family about what's really going on?
Pride.
Pride, right. Okay, so now we have a 72-year-old woman living in Manchester who has a lot of pride. She has a big family. We're very busy. Some who care, some who don't. I'm not saying anything about the one who doesn't. and she's had enough. She's tried pulling the thing over her head and that's not working. She's still feeling bored with this constant round of looking after people and doing the chores and everything else. She has friends and she has her family, but she only sort of tells them what's going on. She doesn't really tell them how she feels. And this particular day, she's had enough. So she makes herself a list of things that she wants. She wants change. She wants to find someone who can bring her joy. She wants to do less. She wants to live a different life. And to her, the best way to do that in that moment is to burn the list. Keep in mind the burning that list, the list that she burned. Goes out the front door, locks it up, gets in her car and drives off into the sunset towards the seaside and runs out of petrol. That's where we are. So she rings her friends. I've left. Okay. I would like now then, this friend, yellow good one, and the lovely lady in the middle there, that's Charlotte, to have a conversation about the fact she's left. You've left. Tell your friend you've left.
I've had enough. I just burnt my list, took a pair of clean knickers, drove off.
Where did the knickers come from?
I didn't get very far, because as usual, not enough petrol in the tank. Can you help me?
Oh, what's the friend going to say?
What do you need? Petrol. You got me. Is it possible you can get to me with, have you got a can of petrol? So I'm not near a garage at the moment. But I think
She can't hear you if you nod your head, you're on the phone.
Okay.
She's nodding her head, I mean, you can't
Oh,
see
right.
on the phone when you nod your head.
So yes, I think if I could just top it up a bit, I could drive. I think there's an Esso round the corner.
Advertising in our story, I'm not sure that's allowed. Okay, friend, so she's asked for petrol.
So where are you? And how much petrol do you need?
The tank's empty. So if you can bring me a can.
Okay.
Okay.
A can.
This is a very
Two.
interesting paragraph of the story. What's the most interesting part of that story?
But they're not talking about what's happening.
Nobody's asked Charlotte why she left.
Yeah, I know.
Is it any wonder that Charlotte's gone? When she rings her friend to tell her she's left and she needs petrol, and what does the friend do? Nods her head and asks, how much petrol do you need? Who are you going to ring next? Charlotte. Who are you going to ring next?
Is it?
No, I'm down this Charlotte this
Yeah.
time. That Charlotte up there needs a lot of help.
Yeah. It's a good job.
Actually, I think I'm just going to get out of the car.
Oh, you're not going to ring anyone?
I'm not going to ring anyone at this moment.
Okay, so she's out the car. How long has Charlotte been away now? How long has it been now since Charlotte locked the front door and left?
Half an hour.
Half an hour. Didn't get far then. So we can assume that our Charlotte is a little bit sort of scatty
Yeah.
because she didn't even have enough petrol to get half an hour up the road. Her escape plan.
On the list.
It was on the list. It was on the first list. That she decided to ignore. Okay. So Charlotte now, half an hour later, the family have been phoning. Have you turned up at the house to find her?
Yes.
And have you got her grandchildren under both arms going, look, you're supposed to be babysitting?
Yeah.
Right, okay. You knock on the door, no reply. What happens then?
Got a key, open the door and find her keys and her phone on the front door mat where she's supposed to be
Okay.
when she left.
So, poor old Charlotte, who's got this busy family, made the fatal mistake of giving them a key. Word of warning here, never give your kids keys to your house. That's one part of my story. Don't give them. So, they've wandered in, because the lovely lady who expects Charlotte to be there to babysit has gone in the house, and they find her keys. Okay, question. Anybody know what the question's going to be?
How did she lock the door?
How did she lock the front door and leave her keys inside? There you go, there's always a solution when you make up stories. She posted them through the letterbox, so they go in, they find her handbag, they find her keys. So no wonder she hadn't got any money for petrol because she didn't take her handbag with her, because obviously that was on the first list. What do you do now? Panic. Okay.
Phone everyone, get them around.
What are you panicking about? Those that care about where their mum might be, what are they panicking about?
That's just, sorry.
I was going to say, it's all the options running through with someone
Okay.
else is saying that she's kidnapped, others are saying that she just walked out and left things, others are saying,
Okay.
has she got dementia, has she gone mad?
And what about the family member who is angry that she's not there? What are you panicking about?
I've got kids to take care of, I've got to go to work, I'm supposed to do my kids now, my mum's supposed to be there, she's not there.
Okay, right. So, this is the scene we're in at the moment in life. On this particular day, that's only lasted half an hour. That's how short a good story can be. The lovely Charlotte, bearing in mind she's 72 years old and a bit scatty, and run out of petrol, and has friends that don't actually ask her why she left. I think we have to come back to the friends later. A family who are now panicking. We move on to the last chapter of this particular stage. So let's find a solution to this abandoned lady sitting in a lay-by with no money. She's managed to phone her friends, which really didn't give her any help at all because there even was agreement to go and take her the petrol. And the family are panicking. So we have to find a solution now because all good stories have a specific ending. Even if it's only an ending of that chapter to move on to the next. And the only people that can write that bit and create that change and create that solution is the author of that particular story. So Charlotte's up there. What do you want to happen? Really want to happen?
Someone to come and help us, give us some practical help and psychological support to be reborn
Okay.
as our real selves.
Yeah, I don't want to be taken for granted anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, stuff that lot.
Sorry, you're all out.
Yeah.
Okay, so what sort of emotion are you now feeling?
So frustration.
Rebellion.
Yeah, the rebellion.
Yeah.
Ready to move forward.
Okay.
I can do this.
Okay.
I think she wants to just step into the next
Chapter.
random
Chapter.
opportunity and live somewhere, something that just
Okay.
takes her away.
Okay. So she's beginning to make those decisions in her head.
Yeah.
Okay.
She doesn't want rescue.
Because the thing about solutions, and even in stories, the solution takes a little while. But it can't start till the head has decided what the solution needs to be. And that's the thing about when you talk about your story and your life. It's when you decide what solution you want for you, because you can't give a solution to anybody else. And friends. Do you think you're good friends?
No, I would have called her and gone and got her.
So we have rebellion amongst the friends.
Come to my house.
So friends, what solution do you want for Charlotte?
Well, she'll be happy.
Right? Happy?
But she needs space from her family, doesn't she?
Yeah, find out what she needs. How did she get to this point? Why didn't she talk to me? You know.
Okay. Anything else?
It's because she didn't, that's why I was so vague, it's because I didn't realise how unhappy she was because she kept it a secret.
Yeah.
Keep that thought in this story. Every story has a moral. And family. What solution do you want for Charlotte?
Come back and stop being silly.
So you want her to come back and stop being silly? You want her to be happy? Come on.
You just want a babysitter. I just want her to look after the kids like I live my life.
Okay.
I'm going to say, Mother, I'm going to join you up with the RAC now, and they'll get you home.
So we've got practical, we've got caring, we've got selfish, and we've got what else going on? Sound like my family.
Well, I think that we've been arguing all this time about, because I think all of us want her to look after our kids, therefore we're stressed about our job.
Okay.
But then we're also worrying about that Mum's been unhappy and we haven't known this, so...
So we have to balance it. This is so typical family,
Yes.
isn't it? Probably why I don't speak to my sisters anymore. Totally. Because they're, sorry, a bit like you. Very practical, it's about what they need. So, we're at that point in the story where the solution has to happen. Now we know what everybody wants. How do we make that happen? Because in our story, in any good book, you have to know how it's going to happen. You know, you have to know that if you want to get rid of that vampire that's in the attic, you've got to get yourself a stake. You know, and, or with the new look of vampires, take them downstairs to bed and just, well, whatever. Because vampires have changed in the literary world in the last few years. So how do we make the solution happen so that everybody gets what they want? Or as close to what they want as humanly possible? What does Charlotte need to do in order to not be the sort of assert?
Tell people what she needs and wants.
Take what she needs and wants.
She needs to say no to the babysitter. She needs to say no. I'm going out.
So that amazing little tiny word that means more than anything is no.
No, yeah. Boundaries.
Boundaries. So Charlotte needs to set some boundaries for herself. Friends, how are you going to make your solution happen?
Go and get her.
You're going to go and get her, and then what?
Then she's going to come stay with me and sort it out.
So for the friends, they're going to go and get Charlotte, bring her back to theirs, ply her with wine, biscuits, chocolate. But the friends need to find out what it is that's going on. So Charlotte has some support. Yeah? Family, how are you going to make your solution happen?
Let's go and fill her car up with petrol and book her into a hotel and let her go work things out for herself.
So the one who says she's being silly says, just come home, Mum, I've filled the car up, yeah, just get on with it.
That was me, Steve. It's about being silly.
Yeah, sorry, the being silly, yeah.
I just think,
Yeah.
actually, book her into a hotel for a couple of weeks and let her work things out.
Okay. Do you run a hotel? Family, friends? You don't run a hotel? Right, okay, that's a shame. That would have been a really good solution in the story. You'd have actually run a hotel.
I'd say, where do you want to go? I'll come with you. Where's, you know, do you need some space?
You could bring her here. You could bring her here and she could stay in the lovely bedroom,
Yes.
eat lovely food, and meet the people that will teach her how to say
No.
oh, Okay. How are you going to make your solution happen?
I'm going to be a really horrible person in this.
That's all right. We all need the evil villain in our stories. Right, ready to boom.
What the hell do you think you're doing, Mum, and how are you going to pay for swanning off into these lovely places and staying in a nice hotel or whatever? You've got responsibilities to look up to. Look at your grandchildren. Don't you think they deserve to have a nice life and have a grandmother around?
Boom. Boom. Villain incarnate over here manages to guilt trip her. The guilt trip. I have to say, my mother is an absolute genius at the guilt trip without even knowing it. Right, so, typical family going on over here. How are you going to make your solution work?
Well, after joining her up with the RAC and getting her home, I think I would listen to her and ask her why.
Good. What would you do about this, sister?
But why would a family member suddenly change because they've not listened to her all these years?
Yeah, but she's not said anything, has she?
Because she's actually gone up and left the house.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll come to that when we get to the moral of the story.
Oh, I forgot what the
How are you going to make your solution work for poor old Charlotte?
My solution is I'm trying to be the peacemaker. I'm trying to
Right.
sort out and sort Mum out, make sure everyone's happy.
Okay. So the question to all of you in this particular story, who is responsible for making the ending the way Charlotte wants it to be?
Charlotte.
Yeah.
The author.
And everyone's listening to her.
Yeah. So unless the author outlines the issues and the problems, they do that in War and Peace very well. Your book doesn't have to be as long as War and Peace. But it's up to Charlotte to know what she wants. Yeah? So, let me just backtrack again. I'm getting older, this is getting harder. Once upon a time, in Manchester, lived a lovely lady called Charlotte, who was 72 years old. Yet she still led a very, very busy life. She had family to look after, a very busy family, a very large family, a family with differing outlooks on life. But they all wanted something from Charlotte. She had a small group of friends who didn't really understand what was going on with Charlotte, and she'd see them and it was a bit sort of, not superficial, but it's sort of, you know, like you have with friends, we go, yeah, I'm fine, yeah, I'm a bit tired. But this particular morning, the postman walked in the door. This particular morning, she woke up and pulled the covers over her head because she was bored and stressed. Bored with what was going on in her life, the continual cycle that she couldn't seem to get out of. She jumped up and decided things had to be different. She wanted change. She wanted something new. She wanted someone who would give her joy and happiness. So she began to make a list. Now she'd looked at the list that had all her chores on and all the things she had to do all day, like the babysitting and the shopping and everything else, and buying petrol for the car because it was virtually empty. But Charlotte's a bit scatterbrained and forgot that list. Walked out the door, locked it, popped the keys back through the letterbox, which would indicate she never thought she'd come back. She had decided she was never walking through that front door again. She got in her car and drove off. Half an hour later, she runs out of petrol. And her first thought is, where's my next penny come from? I've left my handbag at home. I'm that scatty. Meanwhile, her family tried ringing her. No answer. Now this was very strange. For some of them, they got worried. One of her family members got angry. She had things to do. She was supposed to be babysitting. What about the kids? Another one thought she was just being silly. But they all went round the house. Charlotte had made the fateful mistake of giving them keys. So they were able to enter her house and they saw the keys on the floor, they saw her handbag. The panic began to rise. Panic about how was she, where was she, What were we going to do with the kids? Panic. All sorts of things. A little bit of an argument going on there. Charlotte, in the middle of nowhere, half an hour away from where she lives, in Manchester. Can you get out of Manchester in half an hour? Anyway, she's half an hour out somewhere. No money, no petrol. Rings her friend. And she says to her friend, I've left. And the friend goes... and then remembers, obviously, she's on the phone. So she says, oh, well, what do you need? And Charlotte says, petrol. And the friend, being the great friend she was, said, well, how much petrol do you want? Charlotte wasn't sure because she's still a bit scatty. And the friend went, well, you know, I'll come and get you. Where are you? Okay, I'll, you know, get some petrol. We'll come to you. While Charlotte's waiting, she begins to realise that actually she's got to start saying no. She's got to start asserting herself. She wants a different ending. She wants to be happy. She wants to be less stressed. She still loves her family. She still loves her friends. But she realises that no one actually knows what's going on in her head. Her friends realise that there might be something more to this. Running away the way she did. This is not like Charlotte at all. Charlotte's dependable. Charlotte's always there. Charlotte is a taxi driver. She's the shopper. She's the babysitter. She goes shopping with her friends. They realise something else is going on. Her family, some of them, think that maybe they need to talk to her. Find out. Some of them think she ought to just get on with it. You know, go get her back, send her to a hotel, sort it out, mother. Fortunately, her friends don't run a hotel. So another one of her family goes, well, where's the money coming from to pay for the hotel? And that's where we are. So what is Charlotte's happy ending?
She uses her savings to...
No, she doesn't have any savings, it's not in the story.
Isn't it?
You've got to the point now where this is the story.
I didn't know she didn't have any savings. So hasn't she got any independent money in her
Family, has she got any savings? No, she's got no savings. They've spent it all for her. They've spent her savings and her pension.
We all give her a little bit of money for doing all those little menial jobs.
She gets paid to do the menial jobs.
Not paid, just a little bit of money so she can just exist.
For you three over there, there's a very evil family member over here. She is the villain of the and all we can say is, God help you when you grow up and your kids have got kids.
That's what happens, isn't it?
Yeah. Break the cycle. So we have to create...
Her uncle just died and left her a lot of money.
Her uncle's died.
So she doesn't know that yet.
She grabbed the letter and went out the door.
This is the problem with stories.
She grabbed the letter on the way out the door and found it. Yeah.
That was the messenger.
Okay, yeah.
The postman.
So,
Postman just arrived.
the thing about stories and your own stories is often when we reflect back, we forget things. We forget things that have happened in our life. And like now, you're suddenly finding all these other solutions. Oh yeah, the uncle died, the postman, all of that goes on. But actually in life, it's a little bit the same when you're thinking about your stories. And every client I work with, I start with, let's write your story. Let's pick up those pivotal moments and look at how you solve the problem. Because actually, the situations we get ourselves into, running out of petrol, obvious solution, find someone who'll bring petrol out to you. But the problem of leaving the house without telling anybody and running off into the sunset, wanting to never come back, is a much deeper, more difficult problem to solve. And it can only be solved if Charlotte talks to those people in her life and surrounds herself with those people who understand that Charlotte has trouble saying no. So what's the title of our book?
Say no.
Learn how to say no and mean it. Because this one, you have got to mean it. Okay, so I want you to think then in terms of, you know, life and the way we live today and what goes on around us. I think it was William Shakespeare who said, all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players. And that's so true. And you have to take control of your story because you're writing it. And every moment of every day you can switch the page over and start the next chapter. Now, one of the things we forget is that just because we've written it, it's going to happen overnight. It doesn't often. When I made the decision to leave my husband, that time when I was on the floor, curled up in a ball, thinking live or die, and decided to live, it took me another 5 years before I left him. Because it was that moment that my head said, this has to change. I don't want this anymore. And then you can start looking for that solution. And if you think of it like a story, you can add in things you probably never thought of. Things you never thought you could do. And you open up that space to really build your story. Now, one of the things I've told myself for many years is I'm not creative. I can't draw, therefore I'm not creative. I can't paint, therefore I'm not creative. I joined Lynn's Seed 7, Power of, thank you, the Power of 7. I now have regular deliveries from Amazon. Pastels, watercolour brushes, crayons. And I doodle. And I think, oh, I am creative. Nobody else would want it, but it's good for me. And it opened up a different space in my head. Because I decided I wanted to do business differently. And the only way I can really think is if I step back and think about my story and who I am in my story. And in my story, I'm a princess. I'm a princess who can do anything. It's other people that stop me doing it. You know, I'm creative and I'm this and I'm that. That's in my head. That's how I see myself. And I like that person in me. So as I write the next chapter of my book of life, or if I'm running my business and I'm changing the next chapter, because let's face it, the last 2 years we've all pivoted till we're in a lot of pain. So it's about me. How do I want to create the solution for me to make me happy and me joyful and want people to pick up my book and make it a bestseller? And in amongst that, I have to think about my kids that ring me every time. I have a daughter in Bournemouth, I live in Blandford, and she rings me up and goes, Mummy, are you going shopping? I go, yeah. She goes, can you do it in Asda, Bournemouth? Why? Because I've got some shopping to do. And kids are like that. They're all like that. But my solution in my head is, I've stopped telling her I've got no petrol. And now actually I'm able to say to her, no, I can't come over today. I've stopped interfering in their lives. I was a real interferer in my kids' lives. Real interferer. I've had to stop doing that because it wasn't doing me any good. I couldn't solve the problem of an abusive husband she has. I couldn't solve the problem. So I had to rewrite how I was going to react to it and paint a new picture or write a new poem. So in terms of storytelling of your lives, it's a really, really good exercise to start with, what did I want to do when I left school? Then ask yourself why you didn't do it and what you did do. And then follow those pivotal moments down, because the most pivotal moments for our lives are not the really traumatic ones. It's when our head clicks into, it has to change. And Charlotte's story will continue. And her friends will be there for her with wine and chocolate. Her family will be there to support her and help her as she still looks after the kids and does the shopping. But Charlotte will have learned one big lesson. How to say no. How to be happy. And I can tell you now, come up to chapter 89, she's met a lovely man. who really loves her, looks after her and cares for her, and she's full of joy, and when she can't say no, he does for her. That's my third husband, by the way. So, does anyone have any questions at the moment about how you use stories to help you solve anything in your life? Does it make sense? I'm glad I'm not on the phone.
Yes, it makes sense, sorry. But I do that on the phone as well.
So what is the moral of the story?
Just say no.
It's one of them. What's the other moral of the story?
Don't put yourself last on the order list. You know,
Okay.
pecking order.
I think be clear about what you want, what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah, those pivotal moments, like you said, because I really clicked there.
Yeah.
You know, they're the things that did make me leave with the suitcase.
Yeah. Yeah.
And throw the key
Yeah.
back.
And sometimes they don't have to be that dramatic. Sometimes they're smaller. But it is being knowing that you can take control of your own story. It's nobody else's. You can't control the bit players. All you can do is work out how you're going to work with them in the next chapter in order for you to be you. Now, I kept saying the thing about burning the second list. Think about her burning the second list.
So the second list where she makes...
Yeah, so she had the first list of all her chores, the second list of everything she wanted, but she burnt the list that had everything she wanted.
But she must stop making lists.
There is that.
Be spontaneous.
There is that.
Or she burns it on the full moon and sends it up to the...
There is that.
Yeah, that would
The thing about burning the second list is often we don't believe what we've written down. We want it, but we don't believe it. So if she just burnt the second list because she was bored with making lists, you have to ask yourself, why that particular list? So part of your story has to be believed. I truly believe there are vampires in the world now. I've always believed in fairies at the bottom of the garden. I choose to believe those things because it makes me happy. I choose to believe those things because it enriches my world, if you like. And I don't really care when people say, what? I choose that. And I believe it. Charlotte had a list she wanted, but she didn't truly believe it. When do you think Charlotte started believing in the things she wanted?
When she woke up that morning and said, I'm going out of here.
No.
When she realised what she didn't want.
Yeah.
She drove on.
Once she opened up to the right people who
Can I
supported
say a
her.
word from my lovely friends here?
Yes, of course.
Because very often, well, no, your friends may be sitting on your shoulder saying, don't put up with this any longer, don't put up with, and you're exactly as you say, you're not in the place
Yeah.
to say, okay, actually, you may well be right, but when you are in that place, you can. As
Yeah.
Jo is very, oh, she's very fiery.
That's it. It's about being with the right people, giving them the information, people not being judgmental, but allowing someone to work through that until they truly believe they can have what they want. And then the list is made in your head. You don't need to write it down. And your book is up here. It's your life. You don't have to write it down. You can dream. You can make choices. And that's the great thing about stories. You can always make choices. And good storytellers are about how stories help you make choices. And sometimes they're wrong and you learn from them, but it's still a choice. You always have a choice. Okay. How are we doing for time?
Well, you've still got time.
Oh, in that case,
Yes.
in that case, I'm going to go around. Each and every one of you is going to give me a potted history of your life as a story, but it's like the first page. First page. get you're going, ooh, first page.
That 15 minutes we've got.
Yeah. Yeah. So literally, 2 or 3 sentences that sums you up.
3 sentences.
Yeah. 3 sentences. It's the beginning of knowing what you want, Hannah. It's the beginning of, yeah. That you truly believe about yourself. For the beginning of your story. So if I said to you, once upon a time, and you were right to, for me it'd be once upon a time, there was a lady who loved her colour, loved her coloured hair, but it was actually a disguise, so people didn't have to look inside. That would be the start of my story. So think to yourself, once upon a time, who are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely.
Yes.
Right.
Once upon a time, standing on the corner of Shrubfield Grove, my mother said to me, and don't you come back from that university thinking you're any better than any of us.
I want to read the rest of that story. Interesting. Yeah. Who's next? Oh, come on. I'm going to pick on people now because I can be a real bully. Oh, let's yes.
That's the first thing that came into my
Yeah?
head.
It usually is the first thing.
Yeah. Once upon a time, I was the little girl who had a little curl in the middle of her forehead. Because my mother told me I was horrid.
Oh. Did you all hear that? Yeah.
My mother
That sent a chill up me. She was hot. Yeah, her mother told her she was horrid.
Dishwasher.
Interesting. Who's next?
Once upon a time, oh, I just started speaking, don't you? Once upon a time, there was a woman who wanted her freedom, but every time she tried to, the people that she loved made her feel guilty.
Nice.
That's it.
No, that's all we need. We don't need to know any beyond that.
Once upon a time, I overheard a conversation about me. I was very young, and I listened to it, and I felt anger, and I thought about it, and I thought, that is me, and that's not the person I want to be.
That's the start of a poem. I love that.
Once upon a time, I prioritised others. I helped the big bad boys in Brighton. I walked with death with my husband and my mother and my father. I have no family. And I sold up and walked away.
Wow.
And then
Oh.
COVID came along. And I
Okay.
was stuck in Italy.
See? That's a story again. I'm coming to you now. Once upon a time.
Oh, this is my story.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I saw I missed a bit of it.
Oh, it's sort of like the beginning of your story.
Okay, so yeah, okay, so I left school with very.
You have to start with once upon a time.
Oh, once upon a time.
Yeah, I'm terrible like that.
Yeah, so I once upon a time I left school, had no qualifications, worked in the catering industry, ended up having my own business, 15 staff working for me, 2 coffee shops in Yeovil, very successful. COVID came along and I lost everything. And I'm at a big crossroads in my life, and I just started to feel excited about life again.
Excellent. Look at them all. They're hanging off every word.
Once upon a time I was a lonely child, and I wanted to go to Narnia. And I've created my own Narnia.
I've done that as well. And I was 42 when I did it.
Out is Narnia. But other people don't get it.
No, I get
Where
it.
are you?
I get it completely. Okay. Once upon a time.
Once upon a time, you realised that the past doesn't define you and life's a roller coaster and you can keep on transforming yourself.
Yeah.
Lady up there. Once upon a time.
You come back
back to you.
Yes, I can come back to you. Have you done you yet?
Vicky can go first.
Okay. Once upon a time there was a woman who knows she is ugly, but also knows she is clever, because she heard someone say it when she was 6. She hides in plain sight. She is very shy and hides it by making a lot of noise and wearing a purple disguise. When things get too much, she runs away.
Love it. I get that one as well. Yeah. Okay, who are we around here? Right, I'm going to do you. Don't worry, if you really don't. No, if you really don't, you're allowed to say no.
No.
What did we learn in the whole story?
I don't want to say no. So
Okay.
There's everyone staring at me.
Everybody look away.
Once upon a time, there was a girl who was always told she couldn't, and one day she woke up and she thought, sod it, I can.
Perfect. Lynn, what's your once upon a time?
Once upon a time, there was a bossy little girl who used to boss all her friends around and come up with all sorts of ideas and games they could play all the time. And that bossy little girl grew up into a bossy older woman, and she's still doing it.
Who could you be talking about? So that shows you how we all have a start to a story that can be completely different at the end. And when you know how you want your story to end, you can change perception. And that's when we talk about looking inside and changing perception, doing what you want and being who you want. Thank you.
When I asked them, I didn't know exactly what Bev did. I knew what she did, but I didn't know how to get it. And I'm glad to say that yet again my intuition bore fruit, and you were fantastic.
Good.
So this will be the first of many, I hope.
Oh, right, okay.
So workshops you'll be doing with us as the storyteller.
Yeah.
You have now become the seed storyteller.